The struggle to find talent, the struggle to review resumes, hundreds, thousands of resumes. How do you do it? What about AI resume screening? Absolutely. Ever heard of that? You're going to hear about it today on the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show. Michael Yinger, welcome to the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show.
Thanks, Chuck. Happy to be here. Glad to be in a conversation with you.
Yeah, this is really exciting because, well, I've been in HR for a number of years, been an HR director, but I started in recruiting. I've been in every job, whether I've HR director, HR manager, corporate HR director, I'm always dealing with recruiting. Yeah. And I cannot wait to hear more about ResumeSieve. I can't, because it's intriguing when I read just a little bit of the material here, and it has to do with finding qualified candidates, but doing it with AI. And so I want to get into all that neat stuff, but I want to hear about you. Who's Michael Yinger? Yeah. Who are you? What's your deal? Who are you? Where? I know you're in North Carolina, right? Yeah. So we know that, but tell me more about you, who you are, what you've done, how you got to where you are, and then let's hear about ResumeSieve.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chuck. Again, appreciate the opportunity. I've been in talent acquisition and HR tech for almost 20 years. I started out, I consider this to be sort of my third career. I spent time in transportation, and then I was in consulting, and then I morphed into talent acquisition. I started out at Sieve, which became Randstad through an acquisition, doing process work and implementation. And then I moved over to Aon Hewitt, where I was in charge of the global RPO. And so I had all the accounts and all the recruiting was going on, people who work for me globally. We got acquired by People Scout, which is part of True Blue. And so at People Scout, I was initially one of the portfolio leads and had 60 or 70 accounts that I was responsible for. Became head of global sales and product management, and things are going along. And then, of course, we hit COVID. And one of the things about the RPO industry, the staffing industry, certainly is it fluctuates when the economy fluctuates. We saw it in 2008, 2009. We saw it again in 2020. And so I was redundant. Okay, understand that. And so I got into a conversation with the folks at ResumeSieve. They had a tool. This tool was developed. They had an IT staffing company that they had founded and then sold. And they had built a tool to help their recruiters deal with all of these resumes that they were getting from all these job placements that they were getting from their clients. And they said, look, we think that this is something that could be commercially viable. Would you come help us make this commercially viable? So that was a little over a year ago. I joined. We found a technology company who looked at the software and said, yeah, we can help you build this. We built our tool and we launched the first version of the tool in March. We've upgraded it 3 times since. And so we're out there in the market, talking to customers, talking to people, helping them work through the process. Our focus, you say, well, there's a lot of tools out there. Well, there are a lot of tools in HR tech. There's no question. A lot of tools you can use for recruiting. And most of those are focused at the top of the pyramid. They're focused up there where people have money to spend. They're recruiting thousands of people. One of my previous clients, we did 65,000 hires a year. Yeah, you betcha they had tools to handle 65,000 clients a year. The reality is that there are tens of millions of companies which have nothing. HR, somebody like you, part-time, is doing the recruiting. And they're probably doing it based on emails that are being coming in with the resumes attached, or maybe they're going and they're doing a job posting at Indeed, and they get a list of people, and then they're printing those emails out and those resumes out. Those are the folks that we really think we can help by dramatically improving the process of evaluating those resumes. That's what ResumeSieve does.
Wow. I know, I'm sitting there like, I can think back to where early on in my career as HR, I would take stacks of paper resumes home, go sit sometimes in front of the TV, right? And or just on the couch without and just go through yes, no, yes, no. I was laborious type process. So you're saying that there is a way to go ahead and actually do that automatically, correct? I mean, that's what I hear you saying, and pretty accurately, more
Yep.
accurately, you think, than
Oh,
the human eyes, huh?
well, yeah. I mean, for one thing, notwithstanding, people's, you bring into the issue bias. Let's just set that aside for a minute. That exists, but let's set it aside for a minute.
Yeah.
If you're reviewing 50 resumes, by the time you get to 30, do you even remember what the first one was?
No.
Are you really
right.
looking at them the same? Every resume is different. They're structured different. Let me give you a concrete example. I posted a job for us for customer success lead. I did a free post on Indeed and a free post on LinkedIn. Let it run for a week at 296 applicants. Downloaded their resumes. That was the longest part of the process. It took me about 2.5 hours to download their resumes. But I did. Downloaded them all, had them on my desktop. I loaded them into the Sieve, created my job description, and 20 minutes later, I had evaluated all 296 of those resumes against the same set of standards. Then I sat down with my chief commercial officer, who was the hiring manager. So this is me being a recruiter, part of my job, being a recruiter, much like you. You never know who's going to do the recruiting. And he said, well, maybe we need a little more of this and a little less of this. And we spent half an hour tweaking the job description. And then I re-sieved and I gave him his slate, just like that. It all told, from posting to coming up with the slate, was 3 hours of work time.
Wow.
So just let's take a real example. We needed to hire a customer success lead. So I posted a free job on Indeed and in LinkedIn. Let it run for a week and I had 296 applicants. Spent about 2.5 hours downloading the resumes, downloading them to my desktop because, they don't send them to you, right? I built the job in the tool, and then I ran the resumes through the Sieve, and I came up with a list, and I sat down with the hiring manager, who was my commercial officer. So this is me as a part-time recruiter, much like you've talked about. I was being a part-time recruiter here. And he said, well, what if we change this? And what if we change that? And so we spent about 10 minutes tweaking the job description, and then I reran it, and I gave him his slate. All told, end to end, that was 3 hours worth of work.
Right.
So we evaluated 296 different candidates against the same standard. We changed it 2 or 3 times. What was interesting is most of the time the same people bubbled up to the top. And it wasn't because we were trying to get them that way. It's just, as the kind of criteria, it ended up that, even if you said, well, this is required or this isn't, we still ended up getting pretty much the same group near the top of the list. And we were able to go out and interview from that list. And, 3 hours, that's unheard of. And most of that time was the download time.
Yeah.
Most of that time. And that you could do in front of the television and not worry about making a mistake.
I love that, because now that was back in the day. I'd go with these resumes home, and then eventually it got to, okay, we've got electronic recruiting, and there's a number of systems out there, because you don't deal with the sourcing. So we still, as recruiters, as HR people, we're going to be putting things out, whether it's Indeed or Monster or I can't remember some of the other things that are out there. And then we're going to get all of these resumes. And even then, I got to tell you, Michael, I actually, you probably know this. If I have 150 resumes from Indeed and 50 resumes from ZipRecruiter and another 30 from, that just came in to our ATS system, our applicant tracking system, I have to go through each one, and each one has a different platform for me to look at it, advance to the next one. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 different clicks. It's still going to take me almost as long as me just printing it out and just looking at it like that.
Yeah,
so
true.
Tell me how ResumeSieve works and how it would save me also time? I mean, this sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So the basic premise is that you start with a pile of resumes. So you've done your sourcing. This could be historical resumes, right? That's one thing that notoriously the ATSs are not good at, and that is mining their own database. It's because you have to do it by Boolean search, and so you only get the people that hit those particular criteria. It's complicated going back and looking at the history. Where with us, you're building your history as you're loading resumes in. So you start with your pile of resumes, 100, 200.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you another story as I explain this. I was talking to a TA lead for a company that hires telenurses. That's what they do. And she was hiring a recruiter. She posted the job. In 36 hours, she got 700 applicants. So I said, well, what did you do? She said, I printed them all. And 3 of us spent 4 weeks evaluating those resumes to get down to who we were hiring. And I said, okay, what's the problem with that? And she said, I wanted number 701. With our system, okay, you got 200 resumes today. You put them in, you evaluate them. Well, I'm going to let it run another day. I don't really find what I'm looking for, or, I really want to, because there's always the late appliers, right? So you get another 100 tomorrow, dump those in. Now you get 300, evaluate them all again.
Mm-hmm.
It's no sweat to go through that process. So you're able to continually add to that. So process, you asked me that question. You upload your resumes. You've got a job description because you had to get those resumes based on something. You can upload your job description. If you don't have a job description, then you can create one in the system. Either way, you pick what are the skills, what's the education requirement, is there a location requirement, is there a language requirement, is there an immigration requirement? All those things you get to control as the user, and then you get to weight them. How much is this worth? Is it more important that they have more time in the job versus this or that? That process really, it might take 10 minutes,
mm-hmm.
To create the job. Then you take your resumes and you sieve them, which basically means that you run those resumes up against your job description, much like our graphic shows, and they come back to you rank ordered. Those that passed, meaning they met all your criteria, and those that didn't. Mm-hmm. We're evaluating the skills based on, do they have it? How long have they had it? You get to decide how long is important. And do they have it? They had it recently. Yeah. All those things. Now, this is all against the resume, right? And so people will say, well, resume this, resume that. 15 years ago, I was working on a startup, and our whole premise was that everybody was going to go to skills-based evaluation, and we were going to get rid of the resume, and we were never going to use it again. Well, that didn't happen.
No.
That LinkedIn was going to be the system. Well, that hasn't happened.
Right.
We'll assess everybody. Well, that won't happen either because it's just too expensive for most people to go through an assessment for that. I love assessments, by the way. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But if you're a small business owner and you're hiring 4 to 5 people a week in some sort of an hourly job that has some basic skills, can you afford $100 every time you need to do an assessment? No, of course you can't. And so our focus is helping people in that kind of a situation. Our tool will work with just about any company. We're doing some pilots right now, and one of the companies that we're piloting with has an ATS, and so they're downloading their resumes from their ATS because their ATS does not rank. Most ATSs don't. Their ATS does not rank, and so they're downloading them, they're putting them in our system, they're using our system to evaluate who they should be then progressing through the process. The other 2 companies, one is a multinational development IT shop. You go to apply for a job, you fill in the form and you upload a resume. You're sending them an email. They don't have an ATS. So, there's a lot of this in the world. And so we see a real benefit. I'll just give you some quick stats. Observationally over time, 70% reduction in the time spent evaluating resumes. Yeah. Which equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40% reduction in time to fill.
Yeah.
Well, that results in cost savings of a tremendous amount, particularly, if you're a small company, you get 2 or 3 recruiters. I mean, I'm not trying to get rid of recruiters because quite frankly, recruiters are like gold right now. You can't find recruiters. They all got laid off during COVID. What did they do? They found other jobs. I still have contacts in the space, and they are the people who hire recruiters are struggling to find recruiters right now. Mm-hmm. Well, why find a recruiter? Why not speed up the recruiters that you've got? wanted to help
Yeah.
them be more productive.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, I have to tell you, I lived it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're even a professional recruiter, a headhunter, if you're a high volume recruitment type of company, in other words, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in theme parks, hundreds and thousands of resumes. And that takes so much time to get through those resumes. That's the least favorite part of being a recruiter. I'd rather just call that small group of people that I know that are qualified. And I know I don't have to go through that whole big pre-screening process with 50 people. I could just turn it over to the AI. And 70% savings, geez, I would have to say it's probably more.
Well, it could be more. It could be more depending on the circumstance. It's on average, right? I mean, if you're only doing 10 resumes, but if you're doing 100,
sure.
I read an article the other day. I actually posted it that said that the average resume gets 7.8 seconds of evaluation. What are you getting in 7.8? It's like you said. Okay, this is the wrong location. This is the wrong school. What are you looking at? Because all the resumes are different. You asked about AI. This is where the AI comes in for us. Resumes are dramatically different. There is no standard form. Some are based on time. Some are based on skills. Some are based on accomplishments. They're all over the place, right? Well, the AI that is breaking down those resumes is then comparing them against what is today 90,000 different skills. And that grows. The AI is learning how to read the resume, and it's learning what new skills are being added based on what people put on their resume, so that we're keeping up with all of those things as the market evolves. That the tools that our technology is built in, I'd never heard of until they told me, well, we're going to build it using Python. I said, really? What? I thought that was a snake. Sorry.
Right.
I know a lot about technology, but I'm not a developer. It's those kinds of things. And so the AI is learning how to read the resume. Where, is this an email address? Is this the company name? What were the dates? All those kinds of things you think about. Imagine if you're looking at the resume. One of the things that our tool does for you is we break down a bunch of metadata about the resume, because the whole idea is, how can we make it easier for the recruiter to evaluate the resume? Well, for one thing, we score them, we rank them, so immediately you see who most matches your criteria, but then you can look at them right across the top. What job are they in right now? What company are they working in right now? How long have they been working? What's their longest tenure, average tenure? What's their shortest tenure? How long would it take you to calculate that kind of stuff on a resume to resume basis if those were things that were important to you? Do they have education? Where do they go to school? All those kinds of things. We break them out. The whole idea, I want somebody to have customer success. Okay, so you make that a criteria, then you can click on it and it shows you where in the resume they have customer success. So you can see where they've done it. Is it, are you looking for somebody in hospitality, or are you looking for somebody in real estate? You can really get to the core of evaluating the candidate. That isn't just, the sort of the minutia. We make the minutia easier for you.
Okay. No, I like that. So folks, just to make sure you understand, a sieve, and I was telling Michael earlier, I used to have, when I'd go to my sandbox or I beach, it was a sieve, and you'd put the sand in and you'd shake it out. And then, the small, and then what was left, was what I wanted, or something along those lines. So that's what a sieve is. And I love this concept. You put up the job description, and folks, job descriptions are important. So you want to have that job description.
Gotta know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And then you have these, the resumes, and the AI, the artificial intelligence, does that pre-screening. So let me just ask you, because I know I've seen, since I've been recruiting, and I've seen some recruiting softwares that rank, that pull out keywords and say, oh, look, based on these keywords, this person is a 80% match and a 90% match. So what makes your software different? How sure are you that it's actually working well enough?
Yeah, well, we test the heck out of it, so that's for sure. So there are two distinctions there that I'll call out for you. The first is that most of the ranking, and so you even some of the online tools, They are doing keyword searching, but it's a limited search, and it's maybe you can pick half a dozen things, and it's looking for them on the resume, and it's just the fact that it exists. Where we're looking at not only that it's there, but how long have you had it, and have you had it recently? And that's how we're calculating the scoring for that particular criteria. The second thing is we're very transparent, meaning you know exactly what the criteria is. Often some of these tools, and I'm not knocking AI because I think there's a lot that can be done with the AI. You don't understand what the AI is using to determine how it's picking things. And so you're kind of at the mercy of the AI. In my previous job, we had AI sourcing at the front end of our application.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge was the recruiters were saying, well, it's not bringing me back any good matches. Well, that's because the recruiters weren't telling the AI what was wrong. They weren't telling them what was right. There's a whole feedback loop, the machine learning component of AI that is so critical. You look at what some of these AI matching tools are doing is they're taking the job description and they're going out and they're finding people that look like that job description. Okay, that's great. So it's a sourcing tool, but it's not. You're just finding specific ones. You post a job on Indeed, and what's the first thing they want you to do when you post a job on Indeed? They want you to boost it. And they want you to pay $5 per applicant. I'm not knocking Indeed because there are a lot of good people on Indeed, but it's $5 a resume for them to. And then what they're doing is they're looking at your job description, they're looking at what you say is important, and then they're going out and then they're looking for it, right? So they're going out and finding you passive candidates. Well, if you've been a recruiter and you had a choice, would you rather have passive applicants or active applicants? Would you rather have people who are coming to you looking for a job, or would you rather be going out and trying to convert all those people who are out there but haven't expressed an interest in your job? It's a different component of recruiting. It's an important component, don't get me wrong. Our approach is what you're doing is you're processing the applicants. You're processing people who have shown an interest in you or in your job. And so at least you know that if you call this person, it's likely that they'll have a conversation with you. Different kind of thing. But you pay Indeed $5 a copy and you get 25 resumes. You don't know that any one of those people wants a job.
Right.
Really, until you call them.
So we've talked about the company side of things, and we're going to come back to it. So I'm going to let you, if I've missed anything, I'm going to ask you to kind of fill in the blanks at the end as we come up to the end of the interview. But before we do that, I want to talk about the applicant side of things. So is there anything I can do as an applicant, as a candidate, to make my resume more appealing maybe for this type of AI programming, this resume screening?
Appealing is interesting. That our tool doesn't care what your resume looks like. It really doesn't. Mm-hmm. You can make your resume more accessible if you have clearly marked out what was your job, where did you work, what time did you work on that job, what skills did you use when you were doing that job? These are the kind of things that are being extracted from the resume. And so that's the interesting thing about resumes. If you look at 15 resumes, they're going to run the gamut from just plain old text to this gorgeous, fonts and colors and things in boxes and whatnot. Well, imagine you were trying to evaluate those manually for one thing. So we've made that a lot easier. The most important, I think, personal opinion, the most important thing about a resume is accuracy. You don't want to get caught not telling the truth. And I'll tell you a story about that in just a second. But you also don't want to get caught spelling things wrong, because for one thing, if you spelled it wrong, how are we going to find it? Because we're not looking for misspelled words. So that's something to think about. We were evaluating a resume as we were doing testing. And this guy came up with SaaS skills, software as a service skills. I thought, well, that's great. And so I clicked on SaaS and I'm looking for where it appeared in the resume. Can't find it anywhere. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom and there's some white space down at the bottom of the page. And there's this little tiny green box, which is what our highlight would be if SaaS was on the, so I downloaded the resume. I did select all and I changed all the font to black. What this guy had done is he had pasted his resume on top of our job description.
Oh, no. way.
Clever, not honest, but clever. He was ensuring that he was going to meet all the job criteria, even if it wasn't in his resume. He was going to, because some machine was searching for all those words. Well, sorry, buddy. It's funny how it's the games that people play to try and beat the system, when you could be probably more successful if you simply tried to be straightforward with the system, because eventually you're going to get caught, right? The system, the tools are getting smarter and smarter. Even if it's not us, then the people who are checking your education, or the people who are checking your references, they're going to catch these kinds of things. If you got to use subterfuge to get hired, well, I can't help you.
Right. This is fascinating. Well, tell me if I've missed anything. Is there anything else that you think that you'd love to get across about ResumeSieve that I haven't covered already?
I think the one thing that we like to talk about is, where are we going? Today, we're helping evaluate and rank resumes. We're very shortly going to be adding the capability of small groups. So you're a small company, you want to share resumes. You want to move resumes between recruiters. And we're not being an applicant tracking system, because that's not our intent. We're not going to sort of automate the process. But what is it that we can do to make it easier? You want to communicate with the recruiter. We're going to build in that capability so that you can recruit. You don't have to leave the system to go somewhere else to communicate with the recruiter. Multiple languages are untapped for us. We're looking for ways to make it easier to ingest the resume. So today, you upload the resumes, or you can drag and drop them. You can, if you've got a folder of resumes on your desktop, you just take that whole folder and you can drop it all in all at once. We're adding email ingestion. You're getting your resumes by email because that's the way your apply process works. Just forward the email to us, and we'll strip that resume off and we'll evaluate it for you. Trying to make it easier for the recruiter to do your job, because it's often not the recruiter. 50% of the jobs filled in the United States are filled by non-recruiters. 50%. That's guys like you, guys like me, where it's not our full-time job, but it needs to get done. And so we do it. It's the hiring manager. It's the recruiting manager doing it on their part-time basis. It's the office manager. This is the kind of tool. I'll tell you one more story.
I like stories, Michael.
One of our advisors is a managing director at one of the major accounting firms. His boss is a partner. They have every tool in the world. They have a call center in South Africa for interviews, and a call center in Puerto Rico for background checks. I mean, they've got everything in the world. He posts 2 jobs. This is a guy who's making probably 7 figures, right? What does the recruiter do? Sends him 100 resumes.
Oh, right.
What's he going to do with that?
Right.
And with that, you talk about the cost of somebody like that evaluating their own resumes. So there's a use case. This guy could say, you know what? I'm just going to get my own copy of the Sieve, and I'm going to load my resumes in, and that's how I'm going to figure out who I'm going to interview. It's those kind of things that are the possibilities are endless. My brother works for a major engineering firm, and he said, wait a minute. Well, what about internally? We put together teams all the time. We never know who has what skills. I said, load all your resumes in, put in a job description. We can tell you who in your company has the skills you need to be on that project.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
And how long have we been talking about creating a skills database for our people? And we'll do it in Excel, or maybe we'll put it into Outlook or something. Sure, there are tools within the big HRIS systems that do this. Well, first they have to be uploaded, they have to be maintained. Everybody's got a resume. Everybody's got a resume. It's just, these are simple things that people who are in need of simple tools can have access to, that they don't have access to today, because there's some really great tools in HR tech, and they're just not accessible to everybody because of cost or complexity. Yeah. And that's where we come in.
All right. So millions of companies in the United States or worldwide, but what's your target market? Who are you going after?
Sure. Our initial target market are companies less than 500 hires, 500 people, because those are probably the ones that need the help. And we're focusing on staffing companies, technology companies, and healthcare, because All three of those areas are typically inundated with applicants. They're always looking for productivity improvements, and they're concerned about cost. And those are things that we can help them. We can help them with productivity. We can help them with cost. And obviously we can help them with, the volumes that they're getting.
Yeah. I'll give you one other group, theme parks.
Sure.
Theme parks.
Hey. Yeah. Well, I've been, of course, I've been at all the theme parks, but I've actually sat through some presentations, particularly Disney. And I mean, you talk about a well-oiled machine. It's those are really critical. And sure, it'll work with an applicant tracking system if you're willing to, make the connection, and we can do that.
I love that. All right. Michael Yinger, the company is called ResumeSieve. It's artificial intelligence, AI recruiting, but resume review software. It's an app. It's easy to use. It's intuitive. It's amazing results, and it's saving companies and recruiters 70-80% time because you're not having to go through each and every resume. Michael, this has been a fascinating conversation. I love this product, and I see that you're offering a 14-day free trial. Yep. And so tell the viewers and the listeners how they could get hold of you if they wanted more info.
Sure. So resumesieve.com, that's our website, and you can sign up there. I'm Michael at ResumeSieve, and I'll answer any email I get within 24 hours. So feel free to reach out to me if you've got questions or you're interested. We're on all the major social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Reach out and have a chat with us. We'd love to show you what we can do and show you how it can help your business.
Now I got to ask you the most important question of all.
Sure.
Because people are going to wonder, what's the picture in the background?
You mean the head?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's rendering by he's now 9. At the time he was 4. That was what he thought his mother looked like when he was 4 years old.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, folks. Now you got the most important question of the interview answered for you.
That's right. What the heck is that picture?
Yeah. For our podcast listeners, they're not able to see that, but podcast listeners, jump over to our YouTube page and check out the video. ResumeSieve. Spell Sieve for us so for our viewers and our listeners.
It's all one word. ResumeSieve. SIEVE.com.
SIEVE. Awesome. Yep. All right, folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.